On behalf of the NAACP Chicago Southside Branch, the SEIU Local Number 73, CAL, the Educational Village Keepers, Blacks in Green, known as BIG, we welcome you to the Adam Clayton Power Academy. This is the first of 4 candidate forums being held to provide you, the voters, across the south side of Chicago, an opportunity to meet, hear, and question both aldermanic and mayoral candidates. In just 45 days, voters will head to the polls to decide who will be mayor and who will or will not be retained as alderman, who you plan to boot out of office or retain. The results literally lie in your hands. These forums are designed to help you make an educated choice come Tuesday, February 24th, 2015. These forums are called calls to action, and it is being presented during a very historic time, Dr. Martin Luther King's 86th birthday, and the opening of Selma, a chronology of the civil rights movement, and the very reason why you are here today, because you have the right to vote. But to vote, you need to be educated, and that's what this forum is trying to do. Feel free during this time of instruction and introduction to serve yourself from the light and refreshments that we have provided you at the back of the room. But please refrain from walking and other activities that might be disruptive after the candidates begin their opening statements. Bathrooms are located on this floor down the hall. Now, today, NAACP has provided candidates for the 10th Ward, the 5th Ward, the 8th Ward, and now we are on the 7th Ward. And the candidates will present to you their positions on several areas of city government that will affect the quality of life of you and your family. So get ready for opening your hearts and minds to discern the merits of the presentations you will hear today to help you formulate your voting decisions. All of us play a part in making this forum successful. Please, if you have something that rings, dings, flashes, or crashes, cut it off now or put it on vibrate. Also, please hold all applause until the end of the forum. There are many here who favor one candidate, and we applaud as they speak, and if we applaud as they speak, we will have less time for questions to be answered. At the end of each session, you will be given an opportunity to give your candidate of choice a rousing round of applause. Now, for the rules of this forum, that will be provided each candidate an equal opportunity to present their positions to you, the voters. Candidates will have 2 minutes for their opening statement, 1 minute to respond to each question, and 2 minutes to present their closing statements. Our timekeeper, the lady in the blue blouse here at the front, she's holding up a yellow card. She will keep track of the time. For opening and closing statements, a yellow warning card will be raised at 1 minute 30 seconds to remind the candidate to wrap it up. For all questions, the yellow warning card will be raised at 30 seconds for candidates to wrap it up. Red cards will be raised to let them know their time has ended. Now, for those of you who won't stop, just to keep it fair, I will end the presentation. The umbrella comes out, the hook, that is. Because time will not prevent us to cover all the areas in this forum, a copy of the candidates' responses to a game changer questionnaire has been made available to you. Perhaps many of the questions you would like answered were addressed in that questionnaire. However, pages will pass out and collect postcards to get your questions for the candidates. Please word all questions in a general way so that all candidates can respond to them. Question screeners have been assigned to determine if questions from the audience have already been addressed in the candidate's questionnaire or are outside the authority and duties of the offices the candidates are seeking. Candidates are seated in alphabetical order and have drawn a number to determine their order for opening statements. The order is reversed for closing statements. I will determine a random but fair and structured framework for questions to be asked. Again, thank you all for coming to this forum. And we are going to begin with the presentations. And that is going to be, as soon as I find my notes, number 1, the candidate number 1.
Okay. Good evening, 7th Ward. Come on, we can do better than that. Good evening, 7th Ward. All right, let's show some enthusiasm here. We've been up all day. Come on, give it to us. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Greg Mitchell, not George Mitchell, Greg Mitchell. I was born here, raised here, and I currently stay right here in the 7th Ward, right here in the Jeffrey Manor community. Excuse me, guys. Born right here in the Jeffrey Manor community. I decided to run for alderman because after all those years in the ward, I saw my neighborhood go from the 70s to the 80s to the 90s and now in the 2000s. I want us to go back to those days. I want us to go back to those days where home ownership was strong. A home that went on for sale only stayed on the market 30 days. Where crime was down. Where our youth had all type of sports activities. They had the best of schools. I am a proud product of Chicago public school system. Went to elementary school at Luella Elementary, went to Kenwood Academy, graduated in 1987. And from there I went on to Grambling State University, where I majored in accounting, finance, and computer information systems. Upon graduation in 1993, I started working for the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. And over a 22-year period, I've held various positions, support positions, IT positions, financial positions, which brings me to this point. With my 45 years of deep roots in this community, which as city councilman, as your next alderman, would compel me to make decisions and efforts that are in the best interest of the 7th Ward. Number two, my 22 years of experience, business experience, leadership experience, IT experience. I can go on and on, guys. Can go on and on, but I just wanted to say I bring all that to the table to serve you, the 7th Ward.
Hello and welcome everyone here today. My name is Flora Digby, and I am a candidate for 7th Ward Alderman. Why am I running for 7th Ward Alderman? I can keep it very simple for you. I'm qualified. I'm running for 7th Ward Alderman because I believe in community, because I believe in where I live. I've been here for 12 years. I was raised in South Shore. I am actually a product of the Chicago public school system, so I definitely believe in the school system. I believe in quality education, and I believe in an elected school board. I have over 30 years as a non-paid public servant, and I have enjoyed that. I am an active member of my block club, active member. I have experience in budget management as well as budget preparation, over 25 years. And so that experience will allow me to review the budget of the city and to find opportunities for additional resources to bring those to our ward. I'm running as alderman because we, as a community, we deserve more. We deserve much more than what we have received in the last 14 years. What we've received is unacceptable. We need an alderman that's engaged. We need an alderman that's available. We need an alderman that is going to advocate for us and the issues that involve us. We need someone that's going to stand up for us and to work on this issue of crime that we have right now. Our level of crime is at an all-time high. So as your alderman, I have a vision. I have a vision for us of taking the 7th Ward and allowing that and moving that to be a location of destination and not of desperation. I see small businesses coming back into our ward. I see us supporting the businesses that already exist because we know that small businesses support 80% of the revenue that comes in the country, 80%. I come from a family of small businesses, Catfish Digby's, Digby's Armored Car and Detective Agency. And so I've had that experience, I understand that. And I'm willing to and I'm ready to use those experiences to move our ward forward. Thank you very much.
Happy New Year and good evening. My name is Kiana Barrett, and I too am running for alderman in the 7th Ward. I'm running for 7th Ward alderman simply because I care. From my days as a youth that grew up on 73rd and Chappelle right up the street from here, to my days as a Girl Scout in Jeffrey Manor, to my days as a community organizer, putting together youth and mentoring programs, as well as my tenure as chief of staff for the 7th Ward, to this very moment as a mother of two, raising my family here. I believe that we need to make sure that the city that works is working for us. And in order for that to happen, we have to have leadership. And not just any leadership, but we need to have bold leadership that, number one, is experienced, that understands public policy, that can deal with the full scope of issues from potholes to pensions, and that is going to be an advocate for each and every one of you as taxpayers to make sure that the budget is not balanced on the backs of working people, but we have high-quality city services that are delivered to us on a daily basis, that we have responsive government. As your alderman, we need to make sure that we are engaged. I plan to ensure that you all are at the center of the conversation. Nothing can happen without you and your voice in that process. From the crime that we face, there's a great deal of resources that we can leverage from within. It's the ABCDs, asset-based community development, and it starts with us. And as your alderman, I want to harness all of the relationships, all of the knowledge and the experience that I have on day one, because we can't afford another day. We need a leadership who can start work and advocate on our behalf today. So service in action. I'm not just a candidate, I'm a concerned citizen that's been exercising my relationships for the betterment of you, and I continue to do so. Thank you.
Margie Reed.
Good evening. My name is Margie Reed, and I too am running for 7th Ward Alderman. I'm running for Alderman because I feel that government should enhance the lives of the residents. I feel government should work for us, and we also, I feel government should work for us with giving us high-quality city service, actually giving us the things that we need and want. I'm sorry. This includes business, job creation, and also we need government that's going to work with the people and actually get out into the communities. As a community organizer, a block club leader, I've seen change in the neighborhood. I'm on 81st and Escanaba. I've lived there for 21 years, and it has changed. Block clubs are the source of a community. They strengthen the community. We've been losing. When the housing market came and hit my block, a lot of residents left overnight because of the housing stock. I mean, because of the mortgage foreclosure. What we need to get back to is strengthening our community with jobs, with creation of jobs, with mom and pop stores. We also need to bring resources that help our ex-offenders. We have a issue where they're getting out of jail, coming back home into our communities, and we need to find jobs for them. There's nothing for our youth to do. These ex-offenders are having really hard time. We need to look in our justice system at the expungement process. We also need to look at creating more activities after school, more youth centers for the kids to go to, and actually youth jobs, just being more friendly and neighborly to these youth. We can also work together and make our neighborhoods grow and be safe.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Greetings, residents of the magnificent 7th Ward. I am Natasha Holmes. I am your current alderman. Just as by way of background, I did my undergraduate and graduate degrees in Alabama at Alabama State and Auburn University, respectfully. I then moved to the Chicagoland area and began my professional career. When I decided to buy a home, I decided to move into the 7th Ward. I chose to live here. I came here because I love the location, I love the access, and I love the opportunity to be engaged in my community. I became president, and I still am, of my condo association, and I also ran for local school council. I actually served on the local school council right here at Powell and was instrumental in helping them get this school built. This is the only school in the entire network of CPS that actually sits adjacent to the lake. So it's very, very proud to be involved in that. My professional career ran from programming federal funds to writing policy to working at the state level and also working in consulting. When I got the opportunity to become alderman, I thought it was a great way to be in a position to affect change in my community, and that's happening. But we all have to recognize that change doesn't happen overnight. We all have to work together, and we have to keep demanding that we get the high-quality city services that we deserve, that our neighborhoods and block clubs are encouraged to be involved with community policing and working with the commanders and working with CAPS. We also need to realize that in order to attract the type of investment we want, we know that our ward has to be clean, literally and figuratively. And we know that the investment we need is in the form of jobs, job training, employment opportunities, as well as attracting the type of retail that we want to support in our community. So I've been doing this job, and I know what it takes. And so I want to keep this job in order that the 7th Ward can continue to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. LaShonda Curry.
All right, second time. Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is LaShonda Shawnee Curry. I am an educator. I am a community activist. I am a youth advocate. I'm a wife, I'm a proud mother of 3 daughters, and a 17-year resident of this community. And I'm running for alderman because I believe it's time to restore democracy back to the people. It's time to put government back into the hands of everyday people. My priorities as alderman are very simple. One, I want to fight to make sure that we're receiving equitable and quality and efficient city services. I also want to fight to make sure that we have an elected school board that represents the people versus those who are appointed. Also, I want to make sure that I'm working in concert with community and law enforcement to make sure that we have comprehensive programs for reducing the crime in our community. Lastly, I want to make sure that as alderman, I'm working with you and with others to pass an ordinance that requires banks and lenders holding them accountable for the foreclosed properties that we know that plague our community. Making sure that those properties are maintained and that they are put back on the market within 6 months or they face sanction. At the end of the day, people, I want to make sure that we have opportunity here in our 7th Ward because it is a diamond in the rough. It is a gemstone. It is rich in resources, and you and I both know that. So we got to make sure that we're creating an economic development plan that will create job opportunities through economic development as well as workforce development. At the end of the day, I want to put power back into the hands of everyday people.
Thank you. Joseph Mosley.
Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Joseph John Mosley II. I'm running for alderman for a couple of reasons, but the first reason is we've got to stop this urban genocide going on in our community as we speak. Even this afternoon, after we left the meeting this morning, there was a kid shot at 87th Street. But it wasn't in the 7th Ward, it's still our community. More importantly, I'm tired of my basement flooding. I'm tired of getting these red light tickets. I'm tired of poor schools. But really, the real issue I'm going to run for alderman is because I'm going to start fighting. I'm tired of us being on our knees asking for things that belong to us anyway. Stop asking, start taking. We've got TIF monies. We've got all kind of issues going. We have to stop asking and start taking. Stand up, be counted.
Thank you very much. Okay, the panel will have their first question.
Ray Bowman, NAACP. Considering many of the people that fill our county jails have been diagnosed with some form of mental illness, how do you feel the mayor's closure of community health clinics affect the safety of your ward? And do you feel that these closures have the same effect that they have on the safety of the Loop and the North Side?
I definitely want to say that the closures of the mental challenged facilities has had a significant impact on our ward and definitely a significant impact on the city of Chicago. We need to infuse additional dollars and more dollars into social and emotional challenges, not take those dollars away, not close the facilities. We need to give our people, because this is our people, we need to give them resources. We need to stand up for them and we need to advocate for them. Yes, I do believe that that has had an impact on the 7th Ward, definitely had an impact on the city of Chicago, and as alderman, I would definitely put additional dollars into those facilities, into those services, making sure that the 7th Ward has sufficient services so that we can move forward. Thank you.
So I believe that the closing of community clinics or clinics that serve the those who have mental issues, has had a drastic impact on the entire city of Chicago. And, you know, all of us here have heard Tom Dart say he runs the largest mental facility in the city at the Cook County Jail, because we have a lot of our people that are going into these facilities who aren't getting the real treatment that they need. What I've been doing is I've been actually advocating at a higher level. I've been talking with my Congresswoman, Congressman Kelly, about how we can access federally qualified healthcare centers. These are centers that will come into communities and could be of service for those with mental and social needs. So I'm working with Congress in order to get that done, because let's be realistic. Everyone's gonna say they're gonna go to city council and they're gonna change the budget and they're gonna do these things, and honestly, we're scrounging for dollars now. So we have to find creative ways in order to get the funding we need to service ourselves and our community.
So I agree with what has already been stated. It absolutely has had a tremendous effect on our city as a whole, and also in our community. I travel between downtown and Chicago, and I can definitely say that we've seen an influx of people who are out on the street, even in our own communities. So what we know is that we are impacted by it. Crime, it impacts crime, it impacts homelessness, and so the question becomes, what are we going to do about it? And so what I'm saying is that we need to be advocating in city council for those clinics that have been shut down to be reopened, or we need to advocate for an expansion of mental health facilities in our own 7th Ward. We should be working with South Shore Hospital, Trinity Hospital, to incorporate some type of clinic or services that meet the needs of those who are suffering from mental illness.
Mr. Mitchell.
Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, this is a subject that actually hits close to home. Growing up, I had a very good friend of mine who was diagnosed with mental illness. And early on in his life, he had the facilities available to help him get through. Then out of the blue, city started cutting the facilities, and the particular facility where he sought treatment disappeared. It's sad to say that he's not functioning as strong as he used to. He's not that person anymore, so it hits very close to home. With that said, strong advocate to make sure we have mental health facilities, not just in the 7th Ward, but throughout the Chicago area. And I would do everything in my power as an alderman, as a human being, to make sure that these people have the kind of help that they deserve. I want to be alderman. I want to serve the people with passion but without prejudice. And we need to take care of these people.
Okay, could I have the name of the candidate who just came in? The next one would be, number 3, Barrett.
There was a study that was published by the Crime Lab very recently, and it looked at mental illness. And it proved that 3 out of 5 nonviolent criminals, or those who have committed crime, have some sort of mental incapacitation. And given that reality, we must recognize how important preventive care and medication are for individuals in our community. We recognize that with the closure of these clinics, which again is a state program, and we have a new governor that's going to be sworn in on Monday, and we have to recognize the importance of working with all of our legislators to ensure that we have the resources here within the 7th Ward to address the challenges that we have. We recognize that with the clinics that have closed, there are grants that are available. In particular in South Shore, we have grant writers that can work with our churches and our other community centers to make sure that we will have resources and programs available to treat these individuals. It costs us $143 a day to house someone in Cook County Jail. It would cost less if we were to treat them and to return them to society with meaningful ways.
All right, so the next person is going to be Joseph Mosley.
me say this about the mental health facilities. Before you talk about that, talk about education. If you look at the EMH, ADD, LD, BD classifications going on in our grammar schools, local schools, you'll find what the feeder system is really happening, where it's at. I would definitely refund or reopen those facilities, and no, they do not apply to all parts of the city as they do downtown and north side. At one time, Broadway was a dumping ground, as it was called, for the mental health facilities. That being said, however, I'm a grant writer. I believe that we have to look for alternative sources of funding, and I think that's what we have to do, and I'm going to do it.
I agree that mental health has taken an effect on the 7th Ward as well as the city. And as for looking, we do need to find alternative ways to address this issue. As far as Trinity and South Chicago, I believe that we should put other mental health or psychiatrists or someone to talk to these people. Youth are having problems with mental health. They're becoming homeless. There's a lot of homelessness that has now arisen in the 7th Ward. You'll see more people laying or going into abandoned buildings. We need to address those issues with maybe possibly a standalone where a psychiatrist or someone can talk to these people. Just having someone to talk to will also help with mental health as far as getting them on the right track or just needing that extra so they don't go in the wrong direction. And I will work with City Council as well as all that would help to the state legislator to help get the monies that we need to bring resources like this to Trinity, South Shore, and possibly standalone.
And the last candidate is going to be Chavette Valentine.
I wanted to say something about the questions. So far, we've gotten 20 questions from the audience. It's not going to be possible for us to address all of those. We don't have the time. Some of the questions that we have are similar to what the audience, the same subjects, so we'll kind of try to intermingle them. Okay, it's not that we're ignoring anybody, it's just that we just can't get through all of them. Okay?
The last question.
Considering the fact that many people that feel our county jails have been diagnosed with some form of mental illness, how do you feel the mayor's closure of community mental health clinics affect the safety of your ward? And do you feel that these closures have the same effect that it has on the safety of the Loop and the North Side?
I'm glad you asked that question. On my 6-point agenda, the number 5 issue on my agenda is restoring much-needed programs for the mentally ill, severely challenged, and displaced residents of the 7th Ward. When I did my research and study for this answer, for this particular subject, I came to find out that over 60% of the residents in the 7th Ward, at least 60% of them have dealt with some form of mental illness. It is a much-needed service in the community. Yes, ma'am, I'll address that. Hold on, baby. It's a much-needed service in the community in that we must be able to positively and effectively diagnose those who have genuine mental illness issues and not just somebody we don't share an opinion or agree with. We need to speak with the mayor and to work with the governor so that the proper monies can be allocated so that these programs can be funded. I am a strong advocate of dealing with and restoration of the programs for the mentally ill and the challenged in the community. But it goes more than just a treatment. It goes with the long-term and long-term care for the people that we are dealing with and addressing with on those issues.
Now, does the panel have another question for the candidates?
Yes, Rosita Chatanda, Chicago Alliance of Urban School Educators. In recent years, there has been a dramatic decrease in the numbers of African American teachers and Hispanic teachers. Since 2000, we have lost over 10,000 African American teachers. Since 2011, Hispanic teachers have decreased by 4.8%. I have 2 questions. How will you support bringing Black and minority teachers back into the classroom? And what is your vision for schools in the 7th Ward?
And The first candidate to answer that question is Ms. Barrett.
Thank you for the question. We all know that making certain that our young people have access to a first-class education is critical in order for them to compete in the global marketplace, as well as to land jobs and to be meaningful contributors to our community. So when you talk about education and educators, we have to make sure that when we talk to our young people, we glorify the role of being an educator. Working for Chicago Public Schools, I see firsthand just how critical it is to make sure that we have individuals in our classroom that can relate to the students in which they serve. CPS currently presides over 86% of low-income families. So there needs to be teachers that look like them, that can relate to their plight. So we need to make sure that when we're engaging our colleges and universities, that we're making sure that early childhood education is a career path that they seek because of the advances and because of the supports that we as a community are going to afford them as we work with our elected school board and our local school councils.
The next person is Reed.
I agree, and we need to bring more of the people like us into the classroom to help educate our children. I also believe that there should be a more increase in male teachers, black male teachers in the classroom. We're having a lot of issues with fighting, with things going on, and I do believe what Ms. Barrett has said as far as getting youth to respect teachers. Again, we need to bring the black male in to help calm some of these situations that are in our high schools. We need more teachers that we see that are doing well, because when youth see professionals doing well, they'll want to do the same as well. I mean, when you see better, you do better. You see doctors, lawyers. I mean, if they see these things and envision them, that's what I would like to see happen. But as far as bringing them in, I'm going to advocate to the teachers union, to the city council, to also bring black males, Hispanics into our.
As an adjunct professor, if you think CPS looks bad, come to the collegiate level. But I'll say this, I would advocate, just as they have a model on 22nd Street, Teachers College, I would advocate we put one here in our community and have the people come forward from the community that want to be teachers. We're not stressing that as a vocation anymore, and I think that's what we have to do. We have to look outside the box and say, look, here's our school, this is what we're going to do, this is what your job is to do. And until we do that, until we put structures in place, nothing's going to happen for our community. But we have to take ownership of it. Put it here, let's hire them, and let's give incentives to those who want to come and be teachers.
As an educator, I am truly disheartened by the statistics showing that we are down with African American and Hispanic teachers. It's very unfortunate, but we need to think about what the reason is. We need to reach out to the colleges, and we need to build relationships between those that are currently attaining their degrees in education with the schools right now. We need to integrate them and actually provide more internships, bring them in early. I agree, and I have to say, it is critical that we have teachers that look like us, that can relate to us, that have actually come through the system, the school system, that have lived in this area. It is imperative that we have someone that understands the issues and understands that at home, the home structure right now is very different than the home structure 10 years ago. Many of us, there's only one parent in the family. Many of them, those one parent is working 2 or 3 jobs just to meet ends. So it's imperative that, yes, we bring more teachers back into the ward and that we bring them in that look like us and are like us. Thank you.
Let me start by saying that teachers should be one of the most highest paid professions out there. Let me repeat that, because everybody here would not be in the position they're in if it wasn't for their teachers. With that said, respect. A lot of teachers that I come in contact with don't feel they get the respect they deserve, which is why they veer off into other professions. Teachers need to be put on a strong career track. I remember that I was taught by Miss Lofton. My sister was taught by Miss Lofton. My sisters was taught by Miss Lofton. It was a career track. These teachers maintained and remained in the school system for 20 years. So as alderman, I will work with the school system. I will work with the community. I will work with the leadership in the ward to make sure that our teachers, that we advocate for equal pay, the time, that they're very much taken care of so they can maintain a career to continue to educate our children.
So I am an educator. Teachers rock. That's my first comment. I, like a lot of people that I know, education is a second career for me. I was recruited. A principal saw me one day as I was volunteering in my children's school and said, I know talent when I see it, and I know people who care about children when I see it. You should become a teacher. I did that through an alternative but rigorous program. I was able to go back to school, get my master's in education, and become a teacher within a year and a half. We need to recruit. The same way I was recruited is the same way we need to continue to recruit African American and Latino teachers. We need to build a pipeline for recruiting them by working with our community colleges, working with CPS, and working with other institutions to filter in teachers who really want to do the job and want to do it well. What's my vision for the 7th Ward? We need more schools in our ward that are STEM schools and that have CTE programs. Everybody can't afford to pay $50,000 or $40,000 to go to college. But if we implement those programs, it will work.
So my first professional certification was as a certified educator. I actually got my undergrad degree, which is why when I moved, undergrad degree in social science education, which is why I really wanted to be a part of a local school council. I think what we have to do, just from a whole community perspective, in every role that we play, is really uplift teaching as a profession. I think we hear so much down talk about our schools and about the system that we really don't uplift teachers the way that we want them to be uplifted and really get people back into that profession. I started an education task force, and I also have a school administrators roundtable twice a year, where I bring all the school administrators in, CPS, CPD, I bring everyone together because, you know, we were fortunate not to be struck by so many school closings. And because of that, that means that kids in the neighborhood go to the neighborhood schools. I'm proud to report that right now where we're standing, Powell is a level 1+ school, and we just had a new school become a level 1 school, which is Coles Elementary. We have several other 1+ schools in the community.
Thank you so much. Ms. Valentine?
To answer both parts of your question, our responsibility as leaders is to emulate the images within the community our children from our community can identify with and want to relate to. As a child growing up, I came up in a house with Jesse Jacksons and Vera Davises and Danny Davises, and it made me proud to be an African American. Not only to be proud to be an African American, but to be an articulate, educated, and well-rounded, well-versed, well-grounded African American. It is with that type of instruction and guidance that we need to propose to present the images to our children that we want to see them present in the 22nd century. Some of the programs or things that I'm interested in proposing for the 7th Ward for our children are more expansive after-school programs, exposing them to Title IV funding programs where they can have access to free computers, exposing them to after-school programs that keep them at the top of the competitive edge, exposing them to critical skills that keep them marketable in the next century.
There were 7,645 crimes, or so it's reported here, committed in the 7th Ward between December 2013 and December 2014. What plan do you have that will decrease the crimes that plague the 7th Ward and create safer streets?
Alderman Holmes, you're first.
Oh, I didn't know you had the microphone. That's what I was looking for. So yeah, we've actually, with those numbers though, to be truthful, we've actually had a decrease in crime. There's still a lot of crime, but that actually is a decrease in crime in the 7th Ward in particular. And so what we've done is work closely with the police department. And we have an impact zone in the northern part of the ward where we have different TAC teams coming in. And most of you have now seen more police on 79th Street especially. We have an impact zone that's not formalized, but we have one in the Jeffrey Manor community as well. So working closely with the police department, and then also working closely with every single resident in every single block, because we also have to be accountable in making sure that we're reporting crimes and illicit activity that's happening on our blocks and in our community. So I think the plan is that we all work together, we forge relationships with the police department, and we're vigilant about making sure that we report crime and criminal activity on our streets.
Can you restate the question? There were 7,645 crimes. And again, this is a question from the audience, so I can't, solidify whether or not these figures are accurate, but this is a question that someone wanted answered. And the question, there were 7,645 crimes committed in the 7th Ward between December 2013 and December 2014. What plan do you have that will decrease the crimes that plague the 7th Ward and create safer streets?
So again, I believe in partnership programs and patrolling. We can't talk about decreasing crime until we have an honest conversation about the variables that contribute to crime. And one of those variables is a lack of education and a lack of jobs. So when we begin having an honest conversation about job creation and about making sure that our babies are receiving the best and highest quality of education, then we can start talking about crime reduction. So let me talk about programs for a minute. I run a program around for youth, ages 8 to 18. And so I'm saying that we need to implement more comprehensive community-based programs that will address crime, provide restorative justice, second chances, those type of programs for our youth, as well as making sure that we're partnering with CPD and other agencies. We talked about the mental illness, so that means we need to be partnering with DHS as well, making sure that we're talking to all those different entities to bring about some reduction in crime, as well as patrolling. I simply believe that if we can patrol downtown, we can also patrol here.
I believe the crime in the 7th Ward has gone down. I believe we have an influx of officers now patrolling more than ever. I live in probably one of the higher beats that has the crime. Officers patrol all the time. I see them all the time. We are really doing good. We're good. We're working with our police commander. We actually need to have the conversation in the community, because in the community, our block clubs, our neighbors, we see crime, we need to report crime. We also need to share information with other blocks. We need to keep open the lines of communication with our blocks to show that we can strengthen one another by helping one another. We need to reach out, and actually our community organizers are out there doing their job very well. But we need to have that conversation even about our ex-offenders when they come back, the justice system. A lot of things are adding to our crime in the area. But if we work with our community and our neighbors, we can handle a lot of these issues.
Crime is a real issue, and it's a responsibility of us all. Children need something to do. When I was growing up, I didn't have an opportunity to get into trouble because I had so many opportunities in the way of sports, school, and things like that. Those are some of the things we need to bring back. Growing up, we had beat police in the neighborhood. In my particular neighborhood, and some people heard me say this before, we had two particular beat police that knew the neighborhood, and the neighborhood knew them. We called them Cowboy and Stickman. They were able to identify illegal activity and put a kibosh on it right away. Those are things that we need to bring back into the ward.
We've heard a lot about put down the guns. And while that's an important charge to put forth to our community and our young people, we have to also make sure that we're putting forth some alternatives. In the last city budget that was approved in November, there was $14 million approved for after-school programs, $16 million for job programs. Where are those in our community? We have to make sure that when those dollars are allocated and these budgets are passed, that we are receiving the services that are dedicated and we're deserving of. So we have to have an advocate that knows where the resources are and are making sure that they reach our community. We have to make sure that as a community, we're working collectively to put forth meaningful alternatives to our young people, and it's a responsibility of all of us to do so. We have TIF Works, we have job training programs, all of that we need to make sure that we know about so that we're taking full advantage of so those dollars do not leave our community.
Interesting you give me that question. But first of all, if you believe those numbers, I've got some sand I want to sell all of you in this room. If you come on my block, I guarantee you my neighbors are not going to say crime has decreased. As I said, when I came here, there was a shooting on 87th Street. So I can also tell you, as a retired policeman, how these numbers are played. Please sit down and talk with me. But let me say this, how I'm going to deal with that, or how we're going to deal with it, I think. There's a group of people in this room that I'm going to grab, and we're going to go confront the issue. Black men. I've got to get our black men to stick together, go out there and confront these young cats and say, listen, what you're doing is not acceptable. And until we, as a people, get our act in order, don't ask for no money. Everything we're talking about is fine and good, but funding is, you can't throw money at all these problems. We've got to take responsibility and confront these guys and say, listen, this is not going to be accepted, just as you all and I did when we grew up. Acting bad is not a result of what you did at home. You were taught not to do that way, and until we start bringing that back into the home, nothing's happening.
I appreciate the statement that crime has decreased. I have a hard time accepting that because over the last 3 weeks, I've had to hit the floor 5 times from gunshots. So I have a testimony. And for me, this is not acceptable. Now, in order for us to move forward and to decrease the crime, we know that there's a tiered effect. There's a tiered process that we have to handle. Yes, we do have to make sure that we increase the education level, because once we increase the education level of those in our ward, now they can accept jobs, they can now work, and they can actually infuse money into their families, and they can support their families. They don't have to come out and do illegal actions. We know that an idle mind is not a very good mind. We also know that we have schools that have been closed that we can use for after-school programs and for centers for our students, for our kids to have something to do. We know that we can also volley and advocate to keep the schools open later. Thank you very much.
Like many people in the city of Chicago, in 2012, I lost my son to gun violence. It has affected me personally in levels that I won't bother going into detail about because my personal experience is just that, my personal experience. But it's not a unique experience. And the unfortunate part is it's a reality that we're dealing with in the city of Chicago that must be under control. Since that time, I've been working very closely with Superintendent Gary McCarthy and offering him ideas and suggestions as to how to deal with the young men in the community. I've been blessed that for the past 7 years now, since 2008, that I've worked closely with the local enforcement in the 7th Ward, not only in helping them address the issue of the violence in the streets, but mediating and talking to some of the young people, because sometimes it's just a matter of a conversation and getting the young people to talk to someone that they can relate to and trust, knowing that their secret will be safe with you, and opening opportunities to find out what the real issues are, the real burden of what the issue is. These children are in great need of resources, and we need to make those resources available.
If there are no more questions from the panel, then we will have closing remarks. Are there any questions more from the panel?
We have lots of questions from the audience if we have the time. Okay. Give us your plan for the first 90 days in office once elected.
Okay, we'll take Mr. Mitchell. What'd you say?
I believe the question was the first 90 days in office was my plan? Okay, thank you. Day one, I believe in structure, I believe in organization. The first day, implement a structured framework that the ward office will work around. That includes a professional, courteous staff. That includes being responsive, being accessible, being reliable. I want my staff to respond to things in a timely manner, whether it's for requests for services, whether it's for requests for information. I want my staff, other things in the first 90 days is the ward is too big for one person to oversee. I want to break the ward down and oversee it by sectors. There's four areas that make up the 7th Ward. You have South Deering, Calumet Heights, South Chicago, and South Shore. Each area all have different set of issues. I want to put a manager over each area that would steward those areas and report back up to me in the organizational structures as such.
First 90 days. First 90 days is going to be a run. It's going to be time to work. And actually not time to work, but time to continue to work. One of the major things that I'm going to do is I'm going to put a great deal of effort into this issue of crime. I'm going to actually empower the residents, empower the businesses, so that they can work and we can work as a team. My objective is going to be right off the bat to work on crime and to decrease it at least 10%. Now, for some of you, that may sound a little aggressive, but it's not. There are some opportunities out here. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually move forward with the committees that I currently have and bring in residents, working on education, making sure that our schools are supported and that there's quality education. We're going to have economic development. We're going to have programs to provide incentives to bring businesses to the 7th Ward. I have a vision that we are going to be successful. We're going to be lucrative. We are going to be a sustainable ward, and I'm looking forward to working with you. Thank you.
First 90 days will commence with a thank you to you for putting me in office and having faith in my ability to lead. But given the time frame, we would be sworn in May. And so we know two things about Chicago. We have two seasons, winter and construction. So we'll be in the throes of our construction season for our capital improvement, our $1.3 million. We've seen what's happened over these last few months with uncoordinated construction projects that have created a mess on our streets and created a great deal of havoc. So one, making sure that we are informed about what is happening in our community. Secondly, engagement. We realize that a majority of the programs and information misses us because we send out information electronically, realizing we have a digital divide. So making sure that we have block club presidents and leaders that are going to make sure we disseminate information. We're door knocking now. That needs to continue, that we're leafleting our community with information, as well as given our fiscal crisis, I would hold hearings to look at the interest rate swap that we're seeing our banks take over. The elected school board, we would have voted on that and would be prepared to nominate people for that. Those are the things I would do in those first 90 days.
Natasha Holmes.
The clear advantage that I have over everyone sitting here is that I had to do what they're all talking about, and it took a lot longer than 90 days, let me tell you. In my first 90 days, I plan to continue on doing the work that we've done already. And in fact, the first thing that I'm going to do is invite everyone sitting at this table, to come in and help work on a 7th Ward master plan, because that's the second big thing that I really want to work on this year, and to be a part of the conversation and how we really can improve our community. If they're so interested in running for alderman, then I expect them to be at the table and working together and making sure that things are really going to happen in the neighborhood, that they see, that we all see together, and that we want to have in our community.
The first 90 days, I believe I'm going to hire a staff that is courteous, that is customer friendly and customer service, that will work with the community. I also want to, in quadrants, like he said, South Shore, South Chicago, Calumet Heights, and Jeffrey Manor, I want to have town hall meetings in each one of those to actually get to know the people and get to know their needs and what they want. Do a needs analysis of each area so I can actually comprehend how to work better with them in the neighborhoods.
Hi, in the first 90 days, my number one goal really is to talk to you, to talk to people of the ward, to talk to residents, because ultimately, if there's not any engagement between the alderman's office and the people, then really what's the point? So I'm going to be talking to people because I want to be able to do an accurate analysis. I want to be able to identify what our strengths, threats, opportunities, and weaknesses are. And the only way I can do that is by talking to the people. After that, I want to take that information that I get from the people and put it into a strategic plan so that we have a vision for what the 7th Ward will look like and what it can be. And from there, we will move forward.
For the first 90 days, I would like to meet with, my agenda would include meeting with all of the local business owners so that I could find out what their major concerns are and what issues address them the most. I would also like to visit the schools because it's important that as a village, you know, Hillary Clinton once made the statement, it takes a village. When your children understand and recognize and learn to respect authority, then they too will learn to respect authority. And that's something that needs to be readdressed. I love my seniors, so you'll see me a lot within the senior community, going to make sure that their needs are met, making sure that we have safety checklists for those who may be forgotten within the community. Also, I will be meeting with the Chicago police staff, the local leaders and the local watch captains to make sure that I ride along with them to find out where the problematic areas are so that I could begin to address what individuals need intervention and what individuals need referrals and treatment. And last, but I will begin securing contract with vendors who look to bring money into the 7th Ward to begin to build us into a self-sufficient ward. That's my dream for the first 90 days.
Very much, candidates. Now we're going to go to, what did I get?
Thank you. I think you've heard, and you know where I'm at. The first 90 days, if we don't put a cap on this violence, nothing else happens. I don't care about economic development. I don't care about beat meetings. We've got to stop these kids from killing each other and killing innocent people. So that's going to be my first and foremost vision. We've got to confront the gang members, or the game as it's called. Everybody's not a bad kid. Certainly, I understand that. Sometime, as some of the panelists said, we need to engage them. Well, let's give them something to be engaged about. Let's go out there and take it to them. Let's try something different as opposed to what's been tried and has not succeeded. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to go to the closing remarks. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to close, and please respect the time. First candidate is going to be number 4, Alderman Natasha Holmes.
Thank you, and thank you to the NAACP for hosting this. One of the other tenets of what I do as a part of being alderman is really encouraging people to get out to vote. So I'm glad the NAACP is really hosting this forum, and you know, what we've seen in the 7th Ward over the last 3 elections in which I've been committeeman, is we've seen an increase in voting. We push that heavily. I always tell people, number one, I vote. So I'm encouraged to have this many people here at this forum. We had an earlier forum and we had close to 100 people there. So I'm encouraged to know that that message is getting out and people are understanding that your vote is your voice. And I always tell people I'm not far removed. My parents went to segregated schools, and I realize the sacrifices that were made for me to have this opportunity. So I always vote, and I encourage everyone in this room to vote also. In closing, I would just like to say, you know, I came into this position through an application process. And what I've been doing since I've had this position is working this position as a job. All the things that everyone's brought up today, we've all started on that track and done that in this office. And we're continuing to do that work today. Change does not happen overnight. But if we work together, we can change things in the 7th Ward block by block. And that's what I've been trying to do. It's going to have to be block by block. It's going to have to be us working hand in hand. It's going to have to be being involved with one another. As I said before, I invite all these candidates, even now as you're on the campaign trail, to come and see what's going on in the alderman's office and come and work with us and get engaged in some of the community activities that we do. I have a quarterly block club president's council meeting. I have 7 different task forces, and I have a community engagement council. So there are lots of ways to be involved and get your voice heard. And I'm looking forward to the next 4 years of really seeing some dynamic change in the 7th Ward, because we don't just want to be just the 7th Ward in the city of Chicago. We want to be a part of the global image that the city of Chicago has. So I look forward to working with all of you in this room, and I need your vote on February 24th. Thank you.
Thank you to the NAACP, can't get my words out. And for all of you guys for showing up. I think it's really important to host forums like this so that you can make a very informed and intelligent decision when we go into the polls in February. So when I moved into this community 17 years ago, I realized that, like many people, there were some ills. And so I worked really hard to organize my neighbors, worked really hard with CAPS, a program that I really appreciate and love and will continue to do so, to clean up the streets in my neighborhood. And we were successful at doing that. And we've been successful for the last 15 years in maintaining that. I plan to do the same thing as alderman, block by block, community by community, zip code by zip code. I'm saying all this to say that I want to run for alderman so that I make sure that we restore democracy back to the everyday people. It really is time for government to get out of the hands of government and get back into the hands of people. And so I want us to have a voice, because for far too long, it seems as though our voices have been silenced, muted, and we've been disenfranchised. I want to bridge the gap between community and government, making sure that you and I have a say in policy-making decisions and making sure that we have a say in the budgeting process. I want to bridge the gap between police and community, making sure that we strengthen and enhance the CAPS program, but also making sure that we hold police accountable for serving and protecting us, and that we hold one another accountable for doing what we know needs to be done on each and every block in this ward. And then lastly, I want to make sure that we work together to get some key legislation passed for our community. We need to make sure that we do something about the foreclosed homes that are plaguing our community. So the first piece of legislation that I'm going to introduce and I'm going to get behind is going to be one that says, hey, lenders and banks, you got to maintain the property and you got to fix it up and you got to put it back on the market within 6 months. If not, you are going to be sanctioned by the city. And so we got to make sure that we take government, put it back in the hands of everyday people, and that we include new leadership and voices at the table.
Thank you. In closing, I want to say, I'm here because I came this way through community organizing. I'm a community organizer with CAPS, and I love getting out, talking with the residents. I love connecting with them and getting their concerns and making things happen. I believe government, too, also go back to the people. It should be where we're connecting and communicating with one another to get our needs met. I also want to bring the businesses back. I also want to bring training back, trades into the school. These youth are coming out with absolutely nothing to do, absolutely no skills. Either gentlemen aren't teaching them, it's not passed along, so we need to find ways to teach them the skills that they need. I also want STEM projects into the schools as well, because when we go into technology, we need to further our kids to do better and reach for higher things. I also want to put travel where they can see different parts of the community. We have kids that roam around in 2 or 3 blocks, never going downtown, never seeing anything that's nature or good or anything that's beautiful. We want to see more things. How do I put that? We want to actually bring more beauty to the ward to make them see. We want to build into area where they can actually do more activities on the lakefront. We are right here with these magnificent, beautiful neighborhoods. We're in multi-million-dollar neighborhoods, and we need to mind that. We need to know and build it up where we can actually get the best and most out of these neighborhoods that we're in.
I also want to say thank you for everybody coming out. I know it's cold outside, and it's very important that you guys come out, and we appreciate it. As I stated earlier, I'm running for alderman to put the power of the people back, the power of that alderman's office back on the side of the people. Where serving the community will be my #1 responsibility. We as residents, we deserve to have accessible, effective leadership that will put the community first no matter what. As I talked to, I started on this journey in 2010. And that year, ran for alderman in 2011. I came in 3rd place behind then Alderman Sandy Jackson and Alderman Darcel Beavers. And I learned a lot during that time. From talking on the doorsteps and back porches, front porches, no matter who I spoke with, whether they were old, young, irregardless of profession, there emerged one thing. We all share a common vision. And the common vision included things as small as, just wanting working lights on every block, paved sidewalks and paved streets, where every parent and grandparent can walk their child to a quality school in their neighborhood without the neighborhoods being plagued with foreclosed and abandoned properties that bring down our property value. Everybody talked to me. They share a vision where a call to the alderman's office is answered by a courteous, professional person, and requests for service and any other thing they needed was handled in a timely manner. The big thing they shared, the vision came up where everybody, our challenged but historic ward, they don't want us to be written off until it's election time again. I share that. Guys, people ask me, Greg, why do you want to run for alderman? Why do you want to get into politics, especially Chicago politics? And to me, and to you and everybody else in this room, for me, it's personal, not politics.
Thank you again, everyone, for your presence this evening. Thank you to the NAACP for hosting this forum. And thank you to this august body of candidates, leaders in our community that want to move our community forward. You've heard a range of recommendations and strategies about how we can transform our neighborhood. And we have some exceptional ideas, but we have to make sure that ideas translates to actual initiatives. And so when we talk about differences, clearly it's about a matter of competence and who has the experience to hit the ground running and to make sure that we receive the caliber of city services that we deserve as taxpayers, but also to make sure that we have the necessary resources that we need. Just like each of us have come out today and will continue to come out for these forums, we need to mobilize our neighbors to come out so that we are respected as taxpayers. As your alderman, I want to make sure that I'm advocating for your needs, that you see me as a vested partner that is working on your behalf, not rubber stamping any piece of legislation, but my moral compass is that of each of you. And so if we continue to work together, we can make sure that we have all of our 8 schools in the 7th Ward serve as level 1 schools, just as Pyle, that we make sure that we have a robust small business growth and economic opportunity and advancement and development that is not at the cost of displacement. None of this should happen without our voice. And the crime, we cannot address any of these issues without an empowerment plan. We have to feel energized. And the best way for us to feel energized is to have leadership that is vested, that is concerned, that cares. So I thank you for your presence today. I thank you for your vote starting February 9th for early vote, and then February 24th. We have got to make sure that our community is not distinguished for dubious characteristics as having the largest number of candidates running, but because we're a dynamic community that is working for the entire city of Chicago.
Again, thank you. Let me just say this to you. When I'm in office, or when we share the office, we're going to talk about housing, education, job training. We're going to talk about those issues that plague this community. And I use the word plague because it is a plague. We have to also address the whole idea of secondary education. You know, it's one thing to talk about primary, but we have to talk about a secondary educational system too. Let's talk about the special needs children. There's a growing, I have 2 nephews, and I can guarantee you that's an issue within the public school system that is sorely lacking. In that vein, however, there are so many, we have a myriad of problems in the 7th Ward, but the only way we're going to do something about it is to have someone that's going to fight. We have to stop taking what's given to us and start taking what we're supposed to have. Thank you.
Again, I want to thank everyone for coming today. I thank the NAACP for providing us this opportunity. And I just want to say, obviously, you're here today because you're interested in choice. We thank you for coming. Choice is here. We just want to say, as we move forward, as your alderman, I will definitely be a resource to you. I will definitely make sure, which is one of the very important things, I will be a steward to our community. And one of the more important things that we need to pay attention to is that I will make sure all those taxes that are collected for us from a state, city, federal level, those will come back into this ward, and we will continue to grow the infrastructure that is here today. As a 30-year public servant, I will continue to be a public servant to the 7th Ward. I will continue to serve you. I will continue to provide the resources and build the relationships that are going to be needed to grow this ward. I'm looking forward to implementing a platform that is going to be a 3-tiered platform, and that is going to include you as a resident. Remember that the alderman cannot do this job. The alderman needs the help of the constituents. That's the only way that we're going to move this ward forward. So as we think about and as we move on the initiatives of economic and development, making sure that we bring jobs to the ward, we're going to also be looking at moving our education level forward, making sure that we increase that education level, because as we increase it, we empower our residents. I'm a grassroots woman. How we have ran this platform for this candidacy has been grassroots, and that will continue as your alderman. That will not change. You will have engaged leadership, but what's most important is you will have accessible leadership. Unfortunately, we've been missing that for some time. You will not be missing that. That will be one of the main objectives as your alderman. I thank you very much. I thank you again for coming, and I look forward to working with you and for you as your alderman.
I want to thank the NAACP for this opportunity, for this platform, and for this time that has been given to us. I sometimes forget that I'm running for political office and that I don't serve in the security guard business, and I forget which role I'm in, so please forgive me if I pay attention to any special needs in the audience this evening. You know, when I first came into this position, I sat and prayed, and I asked God, why am I doing this? I really wanted to pack up and go to Phoenix, Arizona, and I really wanted to just say, you know, let them deal with this on their own. But I was cautioned in my sleep when God took me to the book of Matthew 25, the story of the goat and the sheep. And it reads, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was homeless, you gave me some place to live. Part of the reason why I chose to be this public servant and why I took on this challenge was because when you take on the role as alderman, it's somewhat like having your own mini community. These are the basic necessities that we need in order for a community to be functional. I look to not only bringing and creating new ideas to restoring the 7th Ward and rebuilding it as the community it once had, as the respect that I grew to know it, but the South Shore area was once considered one of the premier areas in the city of Chicago to live. We've lost a lot of that savvy, or a lot of that savoir-faire, as to say. I look forward to being a part of the plan to rebuilding the 7th Ward to being what it should be and what it was initially designed to be, a token of the city of Chicago of what the African American community had to represent itself within the city, and that we had a part of the city that offered one of the very rare lakeside views that counted in the community. I look to bringing in and developing new business that will help bring the 7th Ward back to that integrity.
All right, that's going to be it for today. On behalf of the NAACP, I'd like to thank the NAACP Chicago Southside Branch, the SEIU Local Number 73, that's COW, the section, the Educational Village Keepers, Blacks in Green, known as BIG, for sponsoring this very important event.